Thank you for joining us. Could we all rise, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance? Students? Thank you. Okay. Mr. Medancy, I'm going to turn the meeting over to you for a celebration of excellence.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I am proud this evening, this is an annual celebration that we have where we recognize the winner of the annual contest, the oratorical contest, sponsored by our friends of the Legion. And each year we seem to bring representatives out that are pretty strong. And if I can, I'd like to bring up Steve Pintrich and Sergeant Major to introduce our winner. They followed him a little bit along the way, and I think he's done very well. So thank you both for coming up here and being here this evening. Our winner this year was David Chimura. And if anybody doesn't know what the oratorical contest is, it's a contest each year where there's certain components to it, but I would say the most important component to it is communication and critical thinking, because you are given prompts about the Constitution, and they're cold prompts. You're not given a lot of time to prepare for what they're going to ask you about, and you have to know it well, and you have to be able to speak to it very well. And if you are able to do that, then you're often going to be successful. And so I've heard great things about our winner this year. I'm not going to ask you to recite any of what you had to do throughout the competition. I know we're a couple months out now, and it's, you may have lost it. But one of the things that often impresses me about our winners is that their ability to stand in front of a group and perform on the spot. And that's a skill, that's a talent. And so it also talks about your passion and knowledge for the subject. So please join me in congratulating David Chimura.
And David, come on up. It has always amazed me going to one of these competitions. You have, 4 minutes to plan whatever it is you're going to say? I could plan for an hour and a half and still not be able to do it as well. You have an amazing talent and a gift. And Sergeant Major, could you tell us about the competition, a little bit more about the competition?
Go ahead.
Okay.
So,
I will defer to the sergeant first class.
Okay.
They're more
Okay.
worried.
Okay.
so at the beginning of the school year, our national organization announces 4 articles of the U.S. Constitution for the students to study in all. They have to give their first speech of 8 to 10 minutes about the Constitution. They can talk about anything they want on the Constitution. Then when the last contestant speaks, we'll take our first contestant off into a room and we give them 5 minutes, and somebody in the audience has picked one of those 4 articles. So they've got 5 minutes to gather their thoughts on that one article, and then they come out and they give a 3 to 5 minute speech.
No notes,
No podium,
no podium.
no sound system. They're standing in front of you giving that talk, and they're judged on how they present it and on the subject matter they talk about. So what I've suggested that they do, and I got this from a student many years ago when I first started doing this contest, is that 8 to 10 minute speech, talk about those 4 articles. Then when you have to come back out and give a talk on one of those articles, talk your first 2 minutes about the other 3 articles. Do your last minute and a half or so on that 4th article. And you're studying everything that you have to know and not stuff that you don't need to know. And that seems to work pretty good, didn't it?
Is that what you did, David? Did you pick?
See, they don't have to do it, it's just a suggestion.
But also a special thanks to Candace Patton, who helps organize it at the high school.
Thank you.
Other towns ask us because we always have a contestant every year. In the last 2 years, when we've gone to Hartford County, we've been the only contestant. And the other towns ask us constantly, how do you always have a contestant? And we say, because we have the support from the board, from the high school, the principals, and down to the teacher that helps us in all. Some of these towns, they can't even get into the front door of the school. So we're very fortunate and we appreciate that.
Well, we are very proud, and David, I'd like to present you a certificate of excellence, having duly qualified under the standards prescribed by the Southington Public Schools. You are hereby awarded the certificate of excellence for your oratorical contest winner. In witness whereof, the seal of the Southington Board of Education and the signature of the Board of Education chairperson and the superintendent of schools are hereunto affixed on this 10th day of April, 2025. Congratulations and well done, sir, well done. Did you want to say anything, David? Excuse me?
I said the plaque and $5 will get you a cup of coffee nowadays.
Actually,
Used to be a quarter.
right.
Coffee is about $7 a cup right now.
Did you want to say something, David, or are you good? You said enough, okay. All right. Well, thank you, and thank you, your parents and your family is here, I'm assuming? Well done, well done. Thank you. Thank you.
Can we take a picture for the,
We can take, oh, yes, for social media. Okay. Thank you. If you go on to Facebook, what is that, Facebook and Instagram?
yes ma'am?
Okay, and it's just Southington Schools? Okay, on both?
Yeah.
I don't do Instagram. You'll be on there, okay? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, I'm looking for a motion for approval of the minutes of March 20th.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I'm looking for a motion for the minutes of April 1st.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. For those of you who are joining us this evening for the first time, you don't have to stay. I forgot to mention that if you have a celebration to go to, we won't feel badly if you would like, you can stay. I mean, you're welcome to stay, but we all get it. We all understand. Okay. I should have mentioned that earlier. Okay, next item is public communications. Communication from our student board reps.
Good evening, Board of Education. Quarter 4 has officially begun at the high school, and students are looking forward to spring break where we can all return refreshed and ready to finish our school year strong. On April 5th, our junior prom transported students to a magical evening with its enchanted garden theme. It was a night filled with music, dancing, and memories that they definitely won't forget. Our juniors also completed their SAT recently, and everything ran smoothly thanks to the support of staff and administration. It was a major milestone for the class of 2026, and we want to thank all of those who made it possible. Looking ahead, we have some exciting academic and extracurricular events on the horizon. On April 24th, the Creative Fair will showcase student work across many disciplines organized by the STEPS XYZ Club. Then, on April 28th, our talented musicians will take the stage for the spring concert, which is always a crowd favorite. And on May 1st, we'll celebrate the academic excellence with National Honor Society and World Language Honor Society inductions. We are also preparing for our career fair. This is a great opportunity for students to explore future pathways and connect with professionals in the field. And lastly, FRC Robotics Team 195 is headed to Houston from April 15th to the 20th to compete at the World Championship. At the New England District Championship, we were honored with the Impact Award, which recognizes exceptional community outreach. Team 195 has reached over 200,000 people with our outreach in the last 3 years. This outreach includes supporting 21 First LEGO League robotics teams in and around our town, hosting Girls Who Code sessions and Elder Nights programs in our town, helping over 50% of Connecticut's robotics teams, and contributing to global efforts through partnerships like organizations with Guiding Light Orphans in Uganda. At Worlds, we will be competing both on the field with our robot and once again for the prestigious Impact Award. We are proud to represent our school and our community on the international stage.
Good evening, and for the district report, we have the South End Drama Club performed Moana Jr. to the 3 sold-out audience during the last weekend of March. The cast featured over 65 talented students from 2nd grade through 5th grade, supported by several alumni from GFK Middle School, Southern High School, and Cheshire Academy. It was truly a wonderful experience for everyone involved. At Thalberg, our kindergarten teachers recently went on their first field trip, traveling to the Bushnell Theater to enjoy a performance of The Very Hungry Caterpillar, a memorable adventure for our youngest learners. A big congratulations to Miss Katie Soltis, 6th grade science teacher, who was recently awarded a Fund for Teachers grant by the Dalio Foundation. This summer, she'll travel to South Africa to collect data and study the impact of human activity on the environment. Ms. Soltis is one of just 62 teachers in Connecticut to receive this prestigious award. Thank you to all the students who donated pasta as part of our school-wide community service advisory project. We collected over 200 boxes of pasta. Our 6th graders led the effort and will enjoy music in the cafeteria next week as a reward. All the donations were delivered to community service yesterday afternoon. Our spring baseball and softball teams are practicing hard and preparing for the upcoming season. Go Eagles! This week, our 7th grade teams visited Meg's Point at Hammonasset State Park to explore marine life ecosystem. A big thank you to the PTO for helping offset the costs of the trip.
And for the sports report, the spring sports are officially in full swing this week. Last Saturday, both baseball and the girls lacrosse team opened their seasons with home victories, taking down Conard and Avon respectively. The wins were a great start to kick off the spring season and set the tone for what's to come. The boys lacrosse team also had a dominant showing in their season opener, defeating New Milford with a score of 10-5. On Monday, the boys volleyball team delivered a thrilling performance, coming back from behind to win in a 5-set match on the road against Simsbury High School. On Tuesday, it brought a tough battle for the girls tennis team, who opened their season against Hall High School. Despite a hard-fought effort, the team fell short but showed great potential for the matches ahead. On Wednesday, the girls softball team celebrated a strong start with a home opener against Middletown High School, while the boys tennis team added another victory to the board by defeating Rocky Hill. Today, the girls golf team kicked off their inaugural season in their first match against Plainville. Overall, it's shaping up to be a great season for the Blue Knights. Thank you.
We also wanted to give the board an update on our previous concern, our parking concern from last meeting. The security guards as well as Officer Valentine at the high school have begun to police who has parking passes and who does not, and call them down to the office to move the cars. Things have gotten better, but there are still students parking outside of spots and in places that are unsafe for other drivers. So we are definitely interested in pursuing a more permanent solution. Thank you.
Any questions of our student reps? Okay. Communications from board members.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I can. I think first of all, I want to speak to the oratorical contest. I was fortunate enough to be able to participate as a volunteer judge for the event. David did a fantastic job, but all of the students, every one of them should be commended for the time they put into the event, the prep that went into it. It was very difficult to pick a winner. I'll be honest. It was a challenge. There were a lot of great participants, and it was an awesome event. So thank you to the volunteers from the Legion, the students who participated, to Candace. I know she's gone now, but the work that she puts in as well. And then last, I had the opportunity to attend the Addams Family play at JFK last week. It's fantastic. It was a lot of fun. So I know tonight they're having another show, and I think the last show is tomorrow night. So if you haven't been yet, get your tickets, get out and go. It's a really awesome experience. So that's it.
Brown?
Yeah, just a reminder that you all have honored at the high school, and if you don't know what it is, it's for people who graduated from our schools who went off in their lives and did things that were noteworthy. The deadline for applications is May 1st, so it's only in a couple weeks away. We will then have a committee meeting, and in the fall, we'll have an induction ceremony. And if you haven't seen it, and I give Richard Roy a lot of credit for this, they upgraded the wall at the high school. It's fantastic looking. It goes back through basically the history of our school, and there's 50-something people on the wall. It's beautiful. Take a look at really the people who came from this town and went out in the world and did some really amazing things. We should be proud of all that, and we continue to honor people. So May 1st is the deadline for applications. The application's available online. If you go to the high school website, you can find it. If not, email me. I can send you one or tell you how to get it. Or I think Frank can help too, probably with that. He's been involved with the wall too. So, deadline.
Okay, thank you. Did you have something? Yes.
I just want to take a moment. So in having a conversation with my daughter about a week and a half ago, she told me about a new pilot that they're doing for 7th grade LA. And part of it was essentially they picked 3 electives that were potentially on a chopping block in this fictitious, I guess, choices for curriculum. They picked music, cooking, and computer science. So they had to pick one and essentially defend why they should keep it. And they were presenting to a fictional Board of Education. When I found out about this, I was like, well, why not a Board of Ed member go to something like this? And so Mrs. Curtin, who was doing it, she was super excited. It was an awesome, awesome experience. You know, ironically, celebrating an oratorical contest winner today. These kids got up in front of the class, they kind of pled their reasons. They had to do research. They had to show essentially the whys. The particular elective was important, and then, you know, part of like the feelings behind it as well. What we wound up doing at the end of class was taking about 10 or 15 minutes for questions and answers. I can't tell you how profound the questions are from these 7th graders, as far as, you know, anywhere from, you know, what's the biggest benefit to being on the Board of Education, to which I said, I know about a snow day about 10 minutes before you do.
That's important.
But again, like, you know, what does it entail to be a Board of Ed member? You know, one of the most profound things was, why do we have to go to school for 5 days? I know other places that go for 4 days, and, you know, really getting into, not in the weeds, but explaining to them like contractual agreements, and, you know, again, like, we have to do 5 days a week, otherwise we have to get the okay from everybody that works for the Board of Education. And, you know, I know that I've said this before, but I find that we don't give kids enough credit for how truly bright and curious they are. And, you know, as adults, we sometimes feel like we have to simplify it. But when you're having these conversations, you look at them and they're like, oh, I never even thought of that. And again, it's just such a great opportunity to see the brains click and that type of thing. But I'm sure curriculum is going to hear about it. I'm really excited about it. I think this is a great opportunity for us as board members to get out into the schools to our end users and essentially help teach them more about what we do. I mean, this is the way to energize the next group of civil servants in our community.
Like it.
So, thanks,
Anna?
guys.
Anna for BOE. All right. You like it.
Oh, God.
Anybody else? Stop it. I just have, did you have something? Mr. Dare? Okay. I have one thing. We had a STEPS meeting on the 7th. We were discussing social hosting during prom season and whether or not parents are aware of the risks of serving underage minors, the loss of insurance, potential lawsuits, the things that could be lost. So right now, STEPS is working on a campaign to really drive home and make people aware of what could be at risk if you host an underage party. And thanks from STEPS to our own Mrs. Mallet for help with grant writing at the 11th hour. It was very, very much appreciated, And it was mentioned at our meeting, and I said I must publicly say thank you. Thank you for the help that you gave them. And also a thanks for time at the administrators meeting to talk about mental health of high school and middle school students, because May is Mental Health Month, and they just wanted to say thank you for that as well. So that was it for steps. Okay, all right. Communications from the administration, Mr. Medancy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, our student board reps did a great job tonight and took a couple of my items. So we heard about Mrs. Soltis and the Fund for Teachers grant, so a huge congratulations to her. What doesn't get said as well is there's quite a bit of effort that needs to be taken to submit that grant application, which is why it's somewhat selective in terms of the number of teachers that are chosen. So congratulations to her. There also, what Lauren Mellett didn't share with you is, although the robotics team got the Impact Award, I was there the previous week in Hartford, I believe it was. It is the most prestigious award you can get in robotics, more than winning your competition. It's in terms of your ability to reach out and impact others. So I find the irony that Lauren and Josh Pulverari, the two people that are on our student engagement team that work to create an impact for our school system by running our social media pages, have that same impact for the robotics world. So Lauren and Josh were the two winners of that award that basically messaged and marketed the Impact Award. Obviously, the entire robotics community works together to create that impact. And then lastly, I just want to thank, this is not a new gift that we've received, but we did receive it again, and I want to acknowledge the folks in the organization that did this. Sorry, bear with me 1 second, pull through some of my notes. There's a gentleman by the name of Steve Wright in an organization called Connecticut Lightning Softball, and you may remember that last year they made a significant donation to Hatton Elementary School, and they've done that again this year. Through their fundraising as part of their softball program in terms of community outreach, they donated $3,000 to the ABA rooms for students for various pieces of equipment and supplies to make an impact in that program. So I want to acknowledge Steve and the organization publicly for that. And we do have a letter on behalf of the board prepared to send to the organization. So that concludes my report this evening.
Thank you. Okay. Communications from the public on agenda items only. Anyone? Just on agenda items.
I thought we were on the agenda, maybe not.
No, unfortunately, no, you're not, Melissa. Not on the public agenda. Yeah, well, you could talk at the end of our meeting. We have open at the end. Okay. Committee reports, Finance Committee. Mr. Carson.
All right, thank you, Chair. Finance Committee met on Monday, April 7th. Meeting began at 6 o'clock, adjourned at 6:49. Just a relatively short meeting. I'll briefly go through the 4 items of discussion. First will lead me to a motion, which is the YMCA before and after care program at our elementary schools. And it's an annual review that we do, and the recommended rates from administration were reviewed and discussed, and they are based on an estimated custodial staff increase of 2.5%. Those contracts are currently under negotiations, but the committee was comfortable with moving forward. Based on that 2.5% increase in custodial staff costs and the update to Social Security, Medicare, and our MERS pension contributions. So at this time, I move to approve the YMCA before and after care program care rates for the 2025-2026 school year as presented by the administration.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Next item, which we discussed, was the food service financials. And I will just say, currently, we are in a positive position of net income. And I will get you that figure right now. All right, currently, our financial statements show a net income of $5,448 for the current year, with additional grant revenue still to be received from the state in the form of the Child Nutrition State Matching Grant and the Healthy Food Initiative Grant, which approximates to about $60,000. Item number 3 was the overall Board of Education financial update. And no major events or movements really within the budget at this time for this month's financials. We do currently have a holdback of spending before the end of the year, as the end of the year approaches, in approximately about $600,000. But we're pending the release, or more importantly, the commitment from the state on our excess cost grant funding, and what percentage that's going to come back at. And we won't know that. We were informed that we were going to get that number the beginning of May. Now it's looking more like the end of May, and Ms. Mellett can speak more to that, that timing.
Sure, we are still waiting on the timing and the amount. That's the biggest question mark. We can wait for the cash to arrive from a budget standpoint, but we need to know what the final reimbursement rate is going to be. So that is a question. We reached out to Mr. Poulos. Anybody who knows anybody at the state, feel free to contact them. It would be just helpful for the districts to have those figures to make their financial decisions. And then the cash would come to us in the 3rd week in June, is what we're being told.
All right, thank you, Ms. Mellett. And just real briefly, I'd like to return to item 2 on the food service financials. And this is just an ongoing update. I know that I spoke to it earlier this year, but currently our student meal debt is rising. It has now eclipsed $17,000 for the year, and so I will just bring that to the public's attention for 2 reasons. 1, for awareness, and 2, to make a public plea that if you are in a financial position to help our students, your neighbors, our community, in making a donation to the board to cover that negative meal debt, it is greatly appreciated. And you can certainly contact the board or the administration if you're interested in either learning more about our negative student meal debt, or in making a contribution to bring that down or to 0. The last item on our agenda on Monday was simply a miscellaneous discussion, and we discussed ADA accessibility improvements at the high school. And at this time, that's an ongoing conversation, which depends on funding of future capital and major project planning that's in the works. And with that said, if anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. If not, that concludes my report.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Carson.
You're welcome.
Okay. Looking for a motion for the personnel report.
I recommend that the Board of Education approve the personnel report as submitted by the Human Resource Department.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any town government communications? Didn't think so. Okay, old business?
Yeah, move that the Board of Ed approve SHS Food and Nutrition revised curriculum as presented by the Curriculum and Instruction Committee.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Next, move that the board approve SHS Foundations of Art 1 revised curriculum as recommended by the Curriculum and Instruction Committee.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Third, move that the board approve SHS Foundations of Art 2 revised curriculum as presented by the Curriculum and Instruction Committee.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Next, move that the board approve SHS World Religions revised curriculum as presented by the Curriculum and Instruction Committee.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. And then last, move that the board approve SHS Advanced Outdoor Recreation new course proposal as presented by the Curriculum and Instruction Committee.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Looking for a motion to accept the recommendation of the Leonard and Gladys Joel Scholarship Subcommittee? Do we have to have a, I was gonna say, do we need a motion on this, Mr.
No,
Bedancy?
you
No,
don't need a motion.
we just have to accept the, okay, accept it, okay. We're not going to announce who it is at the current time, but
No motion.
no motion needed, just that we accept it, okay? Do we have a consensus, do we have to have a consensus on that, or? I'm trying to remember how we did this, no? Okay, okay, just, okay. All right.
There's no motion because not everybody saw and read the
Well,
application.
that we accept the committee's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of wonky.
I don't
We don't announce the winner
It would be
because
kinda
they're
odd to
recognized
vote
at the
against
scholarship night at the high school.
You're not gonna vote against it? No. Okay. No, I wasn't sure if we had to have a motion to accept the committees.
No.
Nope.
No, we just, okay.
Why would you vote no?
I don't know, but one never knows, Mr. Brown, one never knows. All right, moving right along then. Our strategic plan presentation, Mr. Medancy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm pleased to invite Dr. Richard Lemons up this evening to provide an update to the board on where we are at relative to the development of a strategic plan. What you're going to see this evening is a tremendous amount of time that's been put forth so far to gather input and try and synthesize a tremendous amount of information. And so, Dr. Lemons, without further ado, it's all yours.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here with you. About a year and a couple of months ago, we were having a conversation about what a strategic planning process could look like. And a couple of months after that meeting with you, we launched a steering committee, a collection of folks representing a variety of roles and perspectives in the community and in the organization. And just a couple of weeks ago, we met yet again. We've been working through this time, and we're on the home stretch. We have a framework kind of in place, and what I want to do tonight is give you an overview of the process, give you an overview of the emerging work, and let you better understand the next steps ahead of us and forecast what will be coming your way in a few weeks, hopefully. So, let me just flash forward to this. This was a visual that I presented to you at that time that we were talking about what the strategic planning process could look like. Across the top of this slide, this is a busy slide, but I'll try to break it down rather simply. Across the top of this slide is a very simplistic representation of the scope and sequence of the work of strategic planning. The beginning was a rather intensive needs assessment, and what is not perfectly clear in this visual is how intensive that phase was. In many ways, that was weeks and weeks and months were invested in that needs assessment in a way that if we were representing the size of those boxes temporally, it would be a much larger one. We invested quite a bit of time in talking to individuals inside the school district, outside in the community, students, teachers, a variety of different professional roles, parents, community members, civic leaders, trying to understand what people were experiencing in the school system, what they wanted from the school system, what their aspirations were. And that was an exciting process, and we'll talk more about the details as we move forward in the presentation tonight. And over the last couple of months, we've turned from the needs assessment fact-finding portion of this into a rather intensive set of experiences to try to consolidate all of those data, to identify the themes and patterns, and to identify those areas of work that really represent the future of Southington Public Schools, the big investments you want to make, the strategies that you want to invest in. And we've been wrestling with how do you, for lack of a more sophisticated word, chunk all of this. How do you describe the work? What's the appropriate language? It has us having rather grand conversations and debates, and even debating the definitions of prepositions. So it's an intensive process. The bottom of this slide just represents the different roles who are invested. And I want to draw attention to this task force steering committee in the middle. There are a number of people who were working rather intensively for a year now to try to share their perspectives, to try to hear the perspectives of other people in the community, to try to wrangle those ideas down to the ground and make sense of what do they really mean, asking intensive questions of the community, of myself, as I try to interpret and gather more data. And they've been kind of working under the charge you and the superintendent have given, and that's where you were kind of situated in that. But there's another group of people that I want to also thank on behalf of the steering group or the task force, and it's the people who participated in this. We have conducted numerous interviews, focus groups. We conducted a survey that had an amazing yield in it, and people have invested their time, energy, sweat, and tears in sharing their perspectives of the school district and trying to be a part of shaping the direction moving forward. So what I'm going to present next is a work in progress, and it's going to say that purposefully because this is, first of all, it won't be final until it's brought to you and you put your fingerprints on this. As you know, you're the decision makers at the end of this, and the steering group is acting as an advisory group trying to assemble something that they believe represents the will of the community, and put it in front of you and have it in such a good place that you can ask questions, adjust, but that you'll feel confident that it really does represent something quite powerful. But it is a work in progress. So what you're going to see in some of the next slides, you're going to see prototypes and mock-ups of visuals and that are purposefully in that shape. And you're going to see also on certain slides skeletons of where other work is going offline, but I didn't want to put a lot of the details in there because they're such a work in progress. They're at the early stages that it might get us lost in debate about really small grain things that haven't been decided upon by this group. So in our most recent meeting, one of the real breakthroughs was the articulation of a title that has a little bit of catchiness, hopefully you'll see, that speaks to the heart of what will follow in some of the ideas of the strategic plan. And it came directly from members of the steering committee as they were trying to debate and wrestle with what is a mission, what is a vision, how do we create something that's more powerful than just a list of things that we want to do. And it was boiled down to care, engage, inspire, and prepare. And I think the people in the steering committee who were with us as we wrestled with this felt that this captured the heart and the soul of what Southington Public Schools is about. This want to care for young people and the families that send these young people to us, the need to engage young people as well as the family and the community on behalf of engaging these young people, the need to inspire, to create a hope for the future. and also to prepare, to deeply invest in building the skills, competencies, and experiences necessary so young people will thrive when they exit the school system and go out into the world. The next slide is really fake. And the reason that it's such is it's a placeholder. The other way I do this sometimes is I put Latin in. You've seen this on a website that's being developed, and they'll just take Latin text and drop it in as a placeholder. What this has is kind of imaginary text that I created, but often a strategic plan will start with a statement of what is this document that you're going to see, and sometimes it is, and often it has a statement that is shared from the chair of the board as well as the superintendent saying, here's how we developed this plan, here's why this plan is important, here's why we want you to pay attention to it, here's how we're going to use that. We're also imagining that as a communications device, after that there'll be a greater explanation of, well, how did we come up with this plan? What were the phases and stages? And so again, this is a work in progress, and we actually need to, as we finish some of the final phases of this, we need to figure out a way of articulating those. But we're imagining some text along with an infographic that lays out here were the steps that we took as a steering committee to try to engage the community, identify trends and patterns, identify strategies, and try to put these into a coherent plan. We thought it would also be important to share with the readers of the document exactly how many people's fingerprints are on this. So this is also just for you. Survey had an amazing response, and I have not been a part of administrating a survey in Southington before. But from what I understand, this is a pretty large number. We had over 3,000 people spend time on this survey, and it wasn't a 2-minute or 3-minute survey. It was a pretty intensive survey that had multiple choice questions, had forced choice questions, had ranking questions, had open-ended questions. So we gathered rather rich data on what people's experiences were, what they valued the most, what they saw as the most important areas of investment for the community moving forward. We also conducted numerous focus groups, interviews, including interviews of you back last summer. We ran a community forum with civic leaders where we fed breakfast and had a rather open and conversation about Southington Public Schools and the future of it, and people were not of one mind, but there was a rather powerful, rich debate that occurred that morning. And we've had now over 10 steering committee meetings over this last year. So there's been a lot of work in this, and we will want to convey that to people who are reading this document. The ultimate form of this is something that we'll need to wrestle with. The original proposal that we gave to the school district was really clear that we're not communications experts. We don't do graphic art, but I have some talented people on my team. So you're going to see some mock-ups that are just representative, but you will want to assemble this in one way or the other. One way that we would recommend is you find a web-based version of this. So it can be digital, it can be electronic, it can be easily accessed, but you also want ones that will be easy to print out. And all of these would be part of that. One thing that we heard from the community, and I'm not sure that the members of the steering committee kind of imagined articulating this, but we heard in interviews and focus groups and in surveys and in meetings that Southington Public Schools stands for something. That it's not just a collection of people who are doing technical work, and that is happening, but it's also a place that has heart, that has meaning, that people attach meaning to. It's a place where people went to school, they come back, and they send their kids here, that it is a special place. And part of what's special are the values that it stands for. And what we heard over and over again was a kind of a collection of a small number of values, and we thought maybe it makes sense to articulate these values, put them in writing, and use them as an articulation of the culture we're trying to build within our schools for young people, for the adults serving young people. And these are some of the big ideas that emerged. Students first. Again, and we'll have other versions of this, and we'll show you some graphics of this, but the idea that this place exists to put students first. This is not a place that's about putting the adults first. It's a place for serving kids, obviously, as well as the families that send their kids to us. That this is a place that believes in the rich, robust development of the whole child. This is a place that's not just looking at third grade math test scores as the only measure of how well you're performing. That you're looking for young people who can do amazing oratory feats and talk about the Constitution, and you're looking for a variety of and robotics teams success. You're looking for well-rounded individuals, and that's how we want to approach belonging and inclusion, that this is a district that wants to create a space where young people feel safe, where they feel welcomed, where they feel appreciated, and that environment can be set for them to be, for them to grow intellectually in rather powerful ways, and also emotionally. Collaboration and community engagement. This is a place that believes that it is situated in a very special community, and that you need to recognize that, and that partnership with the community is a critical part of the success. That this is a place that believes in integrity and accountability, that we do what we say, and we want to aspire for things, and we want to accomplish those, and we want you to hold us accountable for accomplishing those things. That this is a place of innovation and growth, a place that even though we've had success in the past, we want to take risks, not risks risks with kids, but on behalf of kids. Sometimes be bold and try new things and learn in the process. And this is also a place that talks quite powerfully about educators being important in the lives of kids, about making sure that you keep holding on to the amazing educators that you have, that you keep bringing amazing educators into this community, and that you invest in and develop the capacity of these educators. So that's a lot of text on a slide. So you're trying to efficiently communicate. One thing that we might want to do in a strategic plan is render big ideas in graphics and visual representations. It makes make the idea stickier. They give you an efficient way. It doesn't mean that you don't also need a further exploration of what those ideas mean. This is just a placeholder. Right? This is a mock-up. As I said, I have a really talented member of my staff who has all these software packages that she can pull together, and I can ask her, can you please generate a couple of mock-ups? And she can do it in a matter of seconds. And here's one, and she took that S and the leaf that are part of the branding work that you had already done, and then wrapped around them these forces, and she was trying to give them a sense of power and dynamism. That's the arrows going around them. Obviously, how you want to represent them, it could take multiple forms, and I challenged her to do more than one, and here was another way that you could do this, but they don't need to be circles. You don't have to have circles within circles. We as educators love circles and circles within circles, and we love lines that connect all those circles. Like it's the way we communicate things. You might have more powerful ways of doing that, but I think it's important to have ways, because you'll find that any document that has more than 2 or 3 pages to it, that has a lot of meat to it, you'll want to be able to bring visuals as a powerful effect to your ultimate consumers of this. So core values, one big part. A guiding set of ideas that drive and give this a title. That was another part that we talked about. But one of the really big parts, in addition to those that has emerged, is what I think of as a strategic framework. A small number of really big strategic priorities, things that cannot be accomplished in 1 year, things that require focused, intentional work, ideas that require, metaphorically, double clicking. We have to click into these and say, what are we really going to do here? If we say that we're going to work on student-centered learning and academic excellence, what does that mean? What are the actions we're going to take underneath this? What are we doing next year versus the next year? And that's work that we are compiling right now. But based upon the evidence we gathered from the very first time that the steering committee met to the survey that was administered this winter, these were big themes that emerged in a variety of ways. Sometimes they emerged when people said, we need to do more work here. We're falling down in this space. sometimes these same themes emerge not because there was any sense of deficit, but we do this well, and we need to keep doing this well. That this is our comparative advantage as a system, and we need to keep working on that. And I think that's really important to say, because the spirit of this strategic planning process and the voices that we've heard has generally not been a deficit conversation at all. It's been an asset conversation. People have acknowledged the great work of the past in this community, the strong sense of hope, faith, and credibility that this school district holds. And so these 5 emerged, and there was a lot of agreement from parents and from teachers and other educators in the system, students, leaders in the community around these big ticket items. And I'll walk you through each of these and give you a better sense of what they mean, as also what we're working on in terms of further animating them, giving you some details to them. Again, we'd like a visual, some way of communicating, making these ideas sticky. Again, this is just a mock-up that, again, wraps them around your S and tries to give it a little bit of force. You could imagine them more as something linear. There are limitations in this visual, but again, we're just trying to give you some prototypes so you can imagine what is possible. Ultimately, you'll want to land on one, and you'll want to use it over and over and over again to where you're where people throughout the community are of a singular voice, and they almost roll their eyes the number of times they've seen these communications because you're using them all the time and reinforcing the ideas. And here's another one, not too dissimilar from the very first, that puts these 5 together. I'm going to now show you an empty template, but these are templates that are being worked on right now. We've done quite a bit of brainstorming of what are some of the ideas within each of these strategic priorities, but for the purpose of tonight, I felt like it would just be noise and it would be distracting because we had brainstormed ideas that hadn't been vetted out, and you might have thought, oh, that's what we're saying we're going to do. No, they were just brainstorms. So the first strategic priority is around ensuring all students have access to high-quality curriculum and instruction. Now, this sounds like this is obvious, right? This is the core business of what we do. And we heard there are great things that are happening in teaching and learning in this district, and we heard from a variety of voices there's more work to be done. And so this is a space where the work that's already happening on articulating a vision of high-quality instruction, ensuring that you have a robust, modernized, guaranteed curricula in all of your areas, the work that you're already doing tonight that was exemplified here in your process of adopting new courses, that's a part of this work. And we have folks working right now with the content expertise and whose roles line up with this area, trying to identify what are the important strategic actions that have to be made. If we're going to achieve that, if we're going to make sure that all kids have access to the highest quality teaching and learning and curricular materials, what does that really mean? And what would have to come first, and what would have to then follow that? And so what happens maybe in 25, 26, what happens in the end of 25, 26, what has to happen 26, 27, so that at some time in the not too distant future, there's this great confidence that we've got the systems, structures, and work in place. Notice at the bottom, there's a cell that runs across the bottom. We're hoping to identify a parsimonious list of measures or metrics, a small number for each of the 5 strategic priorities, that if we can, that help us understand what progress have we made, how close are we to the aspiration. It creates a way of communicating the work. It also creates a way of having an honest conversation about, are we doing what we said we were going to do? And if you put those together with the other metrics and measures that are already available, you have performance, you have sets of data that are district specific, that are generated, that tell you how you're doing. You have state accountability index data that give you another set of data out there, and then we can couple those with specific measures to each of these strategic priorities that give you a sense of how well you're doing. We thought that this is an important, this articulation of your vision of a graduate is such an important resource and artifact that describes work that's happening, and one that we need to further invest in. And the folks on the steering committee thought this really resides within that first strategic plan. And some of the work will be to make sure that the curricular materials and the forms of instruction feed into and ensure that students walk across the stage with those core competencies that you've articulated and those qualities of being that run through the tree. Second strategic priority is around social-emotional learning and student well-being. We heard from students to parents, from teachers, from community members, the states of emotional dysregulation that young people in 2025 are experiencing. And some people talked about this globally, and some folks talked about, in my school, we have kids showing up in ways that they didn't show up 7 years ago, 8 years ago. And we need more supports for that so that they can have the conditions in place, so that all of the members of that community can have the conditions in place to have deep, powerful learning. And so that was something that we heard over and over again, that this needed to be a big priority of the district. Again, we have a number of ideas that are raw, uncooked, underdeveloped, but we also have a group of people right now working to articulate what are the biggest actions we would need to take to ensure that all of our students feel that strong sense of well-being and that they're developing the socio-emotional learning skills and competencies that match up with what you've already articulated in your profile of your graduate, as well as to thrive in the 21st century. Measures of progress, again, we'll be working on that also. The third strategic priority was around talent management. This emerged from the first conversation we had. You said we believe in our educators. They are part of the secret sauce that makes our school system special. And a number of you said, and I mean you broadly, the school board as well as members of the community and members inside the system, said we're worried that we may not be attracting, we may not be retaining the workforce that we have had in the past. There was worry that we might be losing incredible talent to neighbor districts that can pay a higher salary. We were worried about the kind of more national trends in teacher workforce shortages. So those conversations came up quite a bit, and people wanted to invest in strengthening the talent management and a workforce sustainability plan that created a comprehensive systemic approach to make sure you got the right people, you were able to grow those people, you were able to hold on to those people as well as possible, and we're in the process of trying to articulate what are the most powerful actions that we need to put in place, who will be responsible for them, what's the timeline, and what the measures will be. A fourth strategic priority was really a systems issue. First three are really student-centered and adult to student. You see the students in these. This was much more about people wanting to really have a pulse of where are we, what are we working on, what's important inside our school system. And that's a communication strategy, an engagement strategy, and a more robust collection of partnerships in the community. And on that last, people said, we've got these amazing resources, we've got community partners, and we've got community partners begging to be even used even more, who want to influence and shape and support the school district. So again, we're in the process of taking raw ideas, giving them some more sophisticated vetting, and identifying the actions, the point people, the timeline, and the measures of how we'll know we're making progress. And the last one, and this emerged quite a bit, and we had a little bit of a conversation in the last meeting, is this the fifth strategic priority, is around facilities. You have a number of people saying, hey, we've been talking about this, but we've got certain facilities that have been renovated or built, and we have others that are farther behind, and do we have the resources to work on that? So this is both about ensuring that those spaces that we're currently using are kept up as well as possible and are made to work for the young people who are right now learning in them. But it was also to have a long-term strategic vision of how we're going to make sure that your Southington Public Schools, the facilities where you're educating kids, are world-class over time. Not that that's something that you can do with the snap of a finger, but it's something you need to work on over time. And again, we know that this one, just like the others, there's work that was already going in all of these categories. This is not like Southington Public Schools has just been sitting on its laurels watching and admiring these issues. You've been working and investing in these already. So part of our task is to identify that work that's already in progress, to identify that work that's very promising and keep investing in it, and maybe to identify the work that hasn't been yet to be identified, whether it's around facilities, whether it's around well-being, social-emotional learning, whether it's around teaching and learning. Then, this is a part that we haven't dug into yet as a steering committee, but it's on the agenda for our next meeting in April, is to articulate in a powerful way, how will we use this plan? So that it's not just a document that looks pretty and has circles and colors and that kind of thing, and then it sits on the shelf. But instead, how are we going to use it? When will schools use it to say, here's the district plan and here's how we'll adapt to our needs? When will we pause in the course of a busy year and ask ourselves, what did we said we were going to do A, B, and C. Did we do those things? What did we learn by doing those? Did they produce the anticipated results? How do we keep learning as an organization? How do we create the kinds of collaboration needed in a planning process, but also in a stock-taking process? How will we use the measures? When will the district come before the community and the board and say, here's where we are in the planning process? And all of that is embedded within an assumption that the plan is only as powerful as the planning that then will happen on an annual basis within the district to bring the big ideas and the big framework down to the ground with real people, real kids, real classrooms, real context for that given year. And it's based upon what we did the previous year and where we're going. So this is just some placeholder language, but that is where we'll be going. And then, again, this is a lot of credit to all of these amazing people who've been working on it. We'll try to lift their names up in the plan too, because they seem to deserve this. And then in terms of next steps, we're trying to really hammer down what are the actions under these strategic priorities. Again, some work has been done on this, and we have work going right now. And what we're hoping in this meeting that we have coming up in April is to vet those, make sure they make sense, make sure that they're coherent, make sure they're put in a logical strategic order, make sure we've got the right kind of accountability moves in place, what units within the organization will be responsible, what people will be responsible, what roles will be responsible, what are the right years that we can attach, work out the measures, clean up visuals and formatting, and then we're hoping later this spring to bring you a more full version for a first read, review, give feedback that we can take offline and put into the document, and then ultimately, hopefully, bring it to you in a place where you're excited to accept it, and to put it into place as policy that can shape the actions and the priorities of the district for the coming years. So I've given you a lot, and would happy to field any questions that you have.
Yep. Mr. Brown, you look like you're.
I actually do have a couple things. First of all, I watching this, there's a lot I think we should have to be proud of in this town. There's also some work to do. One is a suggestion, and this is going to sound silly, but the 4 words you picked out, the caring, whatever, just a suggestion to put them in the order of EPIC so people can remember EPIC instead of just 4 words that are hard to remember. And the other is a question. I think it's one thing to plan and to talk about this. How much do you involve things like the finances of the town, the financial board, the town council? It's nice to plan and to think we're going to do this X, Y, and Z, but the reality is a political reality of you can't do X and Y if you don't have the money for them.
It's a great question. And districts answer this question in different ways based upon their local political reality, which I trust you know better than do I. But I've seen communities where the plan is developed and there's an ongoing process of bringing those other political civic leaders into conversations on a regular annual basis to talk about investments, to talk about resources, to talk about where this precious resource within the broader community's going in the future and how to underwrite it. So I think you're absolutely right. You can't just do this in a vacuum. But what that looks like, I don't know if there's one right way to do it. What that looks like in Southington probably looks very different than New Canaan or Norwalk or Hartford. And so I would trust your guidance and political wisdom and experience on that.
Anyone? Sean, did you have?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So I have a few things that I'd like to hit on. First is a quick one. What was the survey class? Meaning the survey that 3,000 and something people responded to, what did that distribution look like across our community?
That's a great question. I don't have the raw numbers. You might have them. But we had broad strokes, rather substantial feedback from parents. So we had people disaggregate. So parents who currently had sitting members, strong turnout from students, strong turnout from educators with a variety of roles inside the systems, administrative teachers, paras, professional support. We also reached out to members of your community, kind of voting members of your public without a current student, lower numbers, but still had some participation. We even reached out to former students, graduates, recent graduates, and we had some of those who filled out. So we had a wide sampling, but the big heavy hitters were current sitting educators, current parents, students.
Yeah, understood. And Steve, okay, thank you. And I guess the next two things, one more of a challenge, and the second more of a question about tools and resources. So the first, in the strategic priorities, we have 5 strategic priorities. And I think the key with those is your last box there, which is a measure of progress. I think we're, in our daily lives, regardless of what we do for a living or what roles we find ourselves in, it's about measurables, okay? And so my challenge to you would be, I really want to see something concrete that we can hold on to, that we can attach all this work and conversation and survey and data that we're gathering and collecting and talking about and discussing. I really want to walk away from this with something that we can attach to, that we can hold on to. So that measurable piece is a very key piece for me as a board member. So that's kind of my first thing. That's my challenge. And then my second thing is, how do we ensure the strategic plan stays in action? Okay, and so we've made this investment, right? We've made a determination as a board and a community that we needed this, okay, to really engage our community and chart a course for our future within this school district and the town of Southington. But what my experience tells me is people love to give their opinions, but they're not so eager to do the work. So what tools can you provide us with to make sure that we hold ourselves accountable and those stakeholders within the community accountable to continue the action work of this strategic plan. And that's kind of all I have to say.
I appreciate both points. I think that the group wants to develop measures and metrics that are meaningful, that allow us to know whether we're making progress, and also ones that are not so simplistic that they allow for gaming or create perverse incentives. We've seen in education in the past 15 years, rather perverse incentives lead to bad practice and kind of forms of cheating in a variety of ways. In terms of tools, I think there are some, and they're not people-proof, but the kind of crude explanation I can give, and the simple one, is all about the leadership routines you put in place as an organization tethered to a calendar. So instead of just having a document, it is, what are you going to do in October in relationship to that document? What are you doing in the spring? And not have it be month-to-month surprise. Well, we're going to eventually get there. It is having it there, being transparent, creating, and I think that's what we're trying to do in that articulation of how we will use the plan. And it's very much to that. How you can, people like to talk about accountability and holding educators accountable and the system accountable. And they also sometimes talk about board members accountable, holding board members accountable through elections. I think districts are struggling right now is what does accountability look like where everyone in the community is being held to account on behalf of young people. And I'm not so sure that we've found a lot of great living examples of that. So I have fewer tools for that, but I definitely have tools for how you keep the organization in relationship to the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Just the data on the survey, 581 employees, 1,340 parents, 200 town residents, I'm estimating 800 current Southington students, 20 civic and community leaders, and former Southington students, 75. It was 3,003 total at that point in time. That was the last one we had. We ended up with a little bit more from, that we towards the end.
We kept it open, a couple of weeks. And we kept getting some stragglers.
Mr. Oshana?
Yeah, I just want a couple very quick points. First of all, I'm very pleased with the strategic priorities that you put up on that board, because I think that those are the strategic priorities this board has been working on for years, for a very, very long time. And I think in my perspective, the biggest thing you've done so far with the strategic plan is not putting it down on paper, not creating a form or a tracking mechanism or anything. It's getting that out in the community. Because we try, but you don't get people coming to meetings and hearing what's going on. Some people watch on TV, some people do come here, there is a lot of conversation, but a lot of the conversation isn't necessarily about what's actually happening. It's more opinion, it's more political, it's more, I think, and I think by getting those things out there and getting this broad spectrum of people involved and having those conversations you can make a strategic plan, and let's face it, every business has a strategic plan. You work on it for a little while, and it does get put in print, okay? But I think the biggest thing that you've done is you've engaged the community, and I think that is something that we need to do. Once this document gets done, we'll work on it, and we'll use it as a guide. I don't think it's, right now, I think the nice thing is it's really in line with what we've been doing as an organization, as a board, but I think keeping that community engagement of that broad spectrum of people that you just listed off is going to be critical. Because without that, it just goes back to being what it was before this whole project started. So I think the biggest challenge we have is making sure that this gets put out there, but more importantly, we continue to put that information out there. We've always talked about for the budget, get out there and talk about the budget. For critical initiatives, get out there and talk about them. And we're not the best at that. We have to get better at that. So
I think it relates to Mr. Brown's original question, right? How do you have aspirations as a board and we do as a district, but how do we move that forward? And I think to your point, by keeping everybody who's currently engaged in the conversation engaged.
right, exactly.
And keeping it, and having it documented. The thing of it is, we are engaged, we are doing things, but we don't seem to be telling our story very well to the community.
Yep.
And we've always done that. We just haven't been really good about sharing it. So if we had a calendar when in October we're supposed to be releasing something, or we're supposed to be having meetings, things like that, which will keep us accountable. I almost liken it to, you're giving me a diet, I have to follow it, and I have to be responsible. We as a board have to be responsible for following this plan. So I personally am looking forward to the end result that will be a living document that will be living and breathing and moving forward with us. So, any other questions, comments? Mr. Bajewski?
I mean, again, like my interaction this week, I think the most important thing, and, you know, speaking to who engaged with the survey and everything else, we talk about this every single year. As long as I've been on the board, we've talked about how do we get the message out to the public for whether it's our budget, whether it's work that we're trying to do, you know, projects that we're trying to get done. At the end of the day, I think I always go back to the stories of my family where, you know, my aunts and uncles and my dad went to school, and then when they'd get home at the end of the day, they were teaching my great-grandmother English because she was a Polish immigrant. So students have an opportunity to really help their parents understand. I think we maybe are looking in the wrong direction as far as, again, papers don't exist anymore. Social media is an absolute dumpster fire. I think realistically, it's about how do we engage students to sort of get them involved. I mean, look at what we were able to do with our student reps for social media and everything. You know, you guys, we gave you a task to sort of have fun with, but you guys are killing it, right? So it's a matter of, like, if we want true engagement, similar to what we're already doing with this, you know, now we're having stakeholders in the game, but I really think that getting students on board, starting at an early age, whether it's 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, letting them know that they have a voice and being able to, you know, we value your opinion because you're an end user. We want to make sure that, again, our money is going to what we want, and that's creating an excellent level of education.
Thank you, Dr. Lemons.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is public communications on any topic. It does not have to be an agenda item. And please state your name and address for the record.
Do I have to?
Yes, you do.
Oh, now everybody's going to know
Sergeant
my
Major.
name. Steve McCarty, 160 Liberty Street, Southington. I'm here on behalf of all the veterans of Southington and the American Legion to say thank you to the board. In 1967, 2 young men left Southington.
Gonna make me cry. You're gonna
I
make
see
me
it.
cry.
They went to the Marine Corps and they went to Vietnam. They did not graduate. On the 11th of March this year, they graduated thanks to the board. We had a ceremony for them, and they, as a veteran, we deeply appreciate it. Thank you.
Normally, I don't comment, but I'm going to comment. It was my honor and Mr. Brown's honor and Mr. Medancy's honor to be able to do that. Thank you for your service, sir. Okay, I'll stop. Any other public comment? No?
Hi. Ooh, good evening. Hi. My name is Jillian Carlson, and I reside at 62 Old Turnpike Road. I'm here tonight to express my concern regarding Board of Education Policy 5114, Section 6, Procedures Governing Suspension, and its misalignment with Public Act 2445, which took effect on July 1st, 2024. Per the updated law, out-of-school suspensions for our district's youngest students are capped at 5 days, and these students must be provided with trauma-informed services upon their return to school. This new law comes as there has been an overwhelming research showing the negative effects suspensions have on children's self-esteem, mental health, and overall well-being. What I want to know tonight is whether the board is aware that the district recently implemented the old suspension law to the detriment of at least one child and possibly more. That the district punished a child twice as harshly as is legally permissible. Even more alarming, it was only after a parent brought this to the attention of the district that it became clear the district was in violation of a law that had been in effect for over 8 months. Is this lack of knowledge or lack of caring? This is not a rhetorical question, and it was posed directly to the superintendent. His response was that it was simply an oversight. Even after the superintendent was informed of this misalignment, the necessary amendment to align district policy with current state law was not placed on tonight's agenda. This isn't just a procedural misstep, it's a legal failure with emotional and academic consequences. When a district does not follow the law, it fails in its duty to protect and serve all students. We need accountability, transparency, and immediate corrective action to ensure this never happens again. And it is not enough to merely change the policy. I'm asking you to take a hard look at the culture within the district. Why are we punishing students for manifestations of their disabilities? Why is the district's first instinct to punish rather than remediate? Why is best practice overlooked when it comes to supporting children with disabilities? Why aren't the professionals working with our children fully aware of the latest changes in the law? Simply complying with the law after being caught in a gotcha situation is not sufficient. This situation is severe and should have never happened in the first place. I urge you tonight to commit to not just changing the policy, but changing the culture that allowed this to happen in the first place. And thank you.
Any other public comment? Hearing none?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.